hey there, church. Welcome to Afterthought. My name's Taylor.
I'm Greg.
And we're here to recap and kind of summarize some of the afterthoughts that Greg has about his sermon from this past Sunday. This past Sunday, we were in Matthew chapter 22, wrapping up the chapter. Specifically, we were in verses 34 through 46. Really great message where we see, essentially Jesus is just kind of boiling down the law into just kind of a very simple command, which is to love God and to love others. And so great message on Sunday. What were some of you think the big takeaways from this Sunday that you kind of want to emphasize today?
For me, when you think about the oppression of the law that the Israelites were living under, this would have been just such good information for them, and really a change of pace. 613 commands, 248 do's, 365 don'ts. We were talking right before we started recording, like Yvonne makes lists for me of things to do, and I forget most of what's on the list.
Right.
Or I even forget to look at the list.
Right. Don't even know the list exists after it's sent. Yeah.
Right. And so to imagine waking up every morning that there are 613 things that I have to either do or not do in order to be made acceptable to God. And for Jesus to take it and bring it down, you called it
I said he's a savior of simplicity.
the savior of simplicity. Think about that. That's so good. You need to write a book called that. This whole idea that he takes 613 commands and brings them down into two buckets.
Yeah.
Love God, love people. And not 1 and 2.
Right.
It's 1A and 1B.
Right.
But one feeds the other.
Right. It's the outflow.
Yeah. And so this whole idea that as I love God with all my heart, soul, and mind, he is transforming my heart so that I can love others the way they need to be loved.
Yeah.
So I would say that's kind of the summary of the message.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about those 600 and some odd, things that you have to do or not do to be approved, and use the word acceptable. And I mean, I think about the weight and the burden of remembering anything, but especially when that weight is what's making you acceptable to the Lord. Like it's one thing if my wife gives me a list and I'm like, at the end of the day, I don't get it done, or I just forget that it exists altogether, and I get the wrath of my wife, right? I don't know if she watches these or not, but we're going to find out, aren't we? But this was something completely different. This is weighty. I mean, this is weighty to think that there's all of these things that I have to remember and abide by. And Jesus is like, hey, look, because they're trying to catch him here, right? Like they're not just asking for clarification. They're actually trying to catch him in kind of this catch-22, almost kind of getting Jesus to lie kind of thing, right? Because they want to discredit him. And then he kind of turns the tables and he's like, actually, let's just take all of this and let's boil it down to just really two things. You're going to love me. And then as an outflow of loving me and filling your heart with my love for you, you're going to love other people. Very, very simple.
Well, it's simple, and yet it doesn't make it any easier.
Right.
Because the 613 are hard. Even the two,
In practice, the two are still difficult.
To love the Lord with all my heart, all my soul, all my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, I had talked about, my obsession with the Dallas Cowboys and just sports
By the
in
way,
general.
how are you feeling today?
Yeah, whatever. Let's not talk about it. But I do think about just sports in general tends to captivate my heart.
Yeah.
And captivate my mind.
Right.
I'm not going to say it's a soul thing. Maybe. Maybe I have a soul tie to the Cowboys. But I do think that is an area of my life that I know. I'm checking Bleacher Report several times a day to see if Micah Parsons has signed an extension.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, just hoping that this is going to be the hour.
Yeah.
And here's what I know. At some point, he's going to sign an extension. And guess what? My life is going to go on.
Right. It's not going to change anything for you.
So there's something that has captured my heart, has captured my attention. It's captured my near-term future. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think we all have those things.
Yeah.
We all have those things that in the whole scheme of life doesn't or shouldn't matter. And yet it's captivated part of our heart that was designed to love God.
Right.
When he says all. So I say that. And then in the same breath, I made the point toward the end of the message that the law is a reminder that you can't do it
Yeah.
on
We're
your
not
own.
capable.
And I don't think, well, I know the Israelites didn't realize that. So this is part of what Jesus is doing. Jesus came, the Sermon on the Mount, he's making it impossible to follow. It's like he's raising the bar.
Right. Yeah.
Like he says, okay, you've heard it said, don't commit adultery. Don't even look at a woman with lust in your
Right.
heart.
Yeah.
Well, that makes us all adulterers. Don't even, don't just not murder. Don't have hate in your heart for
Right.
someone.
Yeah.
So we're all a bunch of adulterers and murderers
Yeah.
based on the requirements of Jesus.
Yeah.
So now he dumbs it down to 2 laws. Everything fits in this bucket. And one of them is love God with all your heart, soul, and mind.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I have a hard time minute by minute or hour by hour, much less a life
Yeah.
that reflects that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think about, the word idol comes to mind, and the things that, like on Sunday when you were speaking, one of the things I wrote down was, essentially what's living rent free in Jesus's house. Because it's like we put, maybe it's Cowboys football or whatever it is. For some of us, I mean, more practically, for some of us, it could be work. We could be workaholics. I mean, there's a handful of things. I mean, maybe it's an addiction, maybe it's a relationship, but there's hundreds, thousands of things that could take residence where Jesus is supposed to be living, and it's just living there rent free, and it's because we're allowing it to, and so essentially here he's challenging how all in are you, how committed are you,
And where I was headed was, so the Israelites didn't realize it, but the law was actually a placeholder for Jesus.
Yeah.
The law was given as a reminder that you can't do it.
Right.
He put the law in place because we're lawbreakers.
Yeah.
And then even when he puts the law in place, we continue to break the law,
Right.
which means we can't.
Right.
And so we needed the law keeper
Yep.
to come and be the fulfillment of the
Right.
law, the perfect man, the God man who came to perfectly fulfill the law in perfect alignment with the Father,
right.
and then died in our place in perfection so that we could have the law written on our heart.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great story.
Yeah.
And when we see the law as a reminder of our inability to live up to it, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Because as long as we see the law as something that we can do in order to be made acceptable, I mean, we're screwed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
can we say that?
Yeah,
on
I
here?
think so.
Yeah.
think
I
it's
mean,
fine.
we're it's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right. Yeah. No. 100%. You kind of mentioned this a second ago, but when we talk about love God and love others, he's boiling it down. He's the savior of simplicity. He's taking these 600 and so on. Commands and requirements. He's saying all of this comes down to these 2 things. But on Sunday, you specifically said this is not a 1 and a 2. This is a 1A and 1B. Tell us more about that for maybe somebody who's unfamiliar with this passage.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it would be real easy to misunderstand because he says, after he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. This is the first and greatest commandment.
Right.
And he said, and the second is
Right.
this. There's a reason that he pulled the second in there, not because it was a secondary command,
Right.
but he was grouping together 2 thoughts, one from Deuteronomy, one from
Right.
Leviticus, and making them one thought because one flows into the other. Meaning this, if your goal is to love other people well, if you're just a great humanitarian, and you're determined that I'm going to love my neighbor well, you will have good intentions. Probably most of them will be self-motivated to make yourself look and feel better. But without loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, you'll never love your neighbor the way they need to be loved.
That's right.
So one flows from the other.
Yeah.
And so we talk a lot about this idea of not living from, but living for.
Yeah.
Not living for, but living from. I
Right.
said that
Yep.
wrong.
Yep.
So we talk about living for Jesus. Well, when I'm living for Jesus, I'll try really hard to do all the right things. When I'm living from him, it means that he is changing my affections. He is changing the way that I view life. He's changing the way I view others. So where I might be frustrated with somebody, I move to compassion and curiosity,
Right.
which causes me to ask more questions and to enter in with empathy to their situation. But without that, I'm more prone to write you off.
Right.
I'm more prone to live in offense. I'm more prone to be unforgiving because that is who I naturally am.
It's human nature.
Yeah. I mean, we're all naturally selfish.
Yeah.
You know, and so without the love of God transforming us, so I can't love the Lord with all my heart, soul, and mind. I can love him to the extent that I give myself over to him. Then his love begins to fill me up.
Yeah.
So I show up and he fills me up.
That's right.
But I got to show up.
That's right. Yeah. No, and that's that, you know, when you taught that on Sunday, I thought, you know, that's how often that word that he puts in there and the second is like it can be confusing because it makes it sound like it's a second commandment. He's like, no, these are equal. These are synonymous. One just is an outflow of the other. And you said this, you know, just now, but you say this often, you know, living for versus from. When we live for, we're essentially just kind of knocking out a checklist, right? And you did mention that a little bit on Sunday when you talked about, you know, had kind of like your 5 main points. And one of the ones you talked about was the law without love is just legalism. Like we're just checking off the boxes. Yep, Sunday's done. Yep, I went to life group this week. Yep, I served with that ministry, or I served, you know, whatever it is. And those are all great things. There's nothing wrong with any of the things that I just mentioned, but it's the motivation behind it, right? And so, you know, tell us more about that thought, because I thought that was a kind of a really valuable point on Sunday of the law without love. Like love is the center point of both parts of this command. Love God, love others, right? So
well, and I think we have to define love, and Paul defined love in 1 Corinthians 13. We call it the love chapter, but it's interesting because 1 Corinthians 12 is all about the gifts.
Yeah.
1 Corinthians 13 is how we live out the gifts.
Right. Yeah.
Because he says, now we'll show you a more excellent way.
Right.
And then he gets into love. So what he's saying is, hey, you can do all the right things, but if they're not motivated from a platform of love,
Right.
you know, he goes through and says, hey, if you don't have love, you're just a clanging gong
Right.
or a resounding gong clanging cymbal.
Yeah.
If I speak in the tongues of men and angels and have not love, I have nothing.
You're just making noise.
Yeah. Then he goes through and he lays out patient, kind, keeps no record of wrongs, you know, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, all of those characteristics. And I said it Sunday, that's a great list.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of us, legalism says try to do all those things.
Right.
Oh, well, I need to be more kind because if I'm more kind, I'm more loving. Or if I'm more kind or if I'm more loving, it means I'm going to be more patient. So I need to be more patient so that I can be more loving. In reality, I can't do any of those.
Not capable.
And so I need to receive God's love so that I can live these things out versus I do all these things so that I can be considered loving.
Right.
And that's where legalism comes into play. When I'm trying to do all of the things that I read in order to be made acceptable, I've missed the point.
Yeah.
It's not about what you do, it's about what you receive.
Yeah. Well, and I think about that list. So when Alexis and I were, you know, preparing to get married, we're going through premarital, and that was, for obvious reasons, one of the passages that was kind of central to our counseling. And I remember being challenged to evaluate myself based on that description or definition of love. And you did something kind of similar on Sunday where it's like you start going through the list and you're like, okay, well, that's probably like a B minus. That one, I'm probably like a C. And then you get and you're like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. You know, like, because you're like, but that's because you're living for instead of from. You're going, okay, if it's within my power, I'm going to fail at each and every one of these things. I might excel at one or two here and there and get a little bit of glimpse of hope. Like, oh, well, maybe I'm not that bad of a person, you know? Right. But at the end of the day, we're not capable of fulfilling that definition of love, right? It's only when we're living from the Lord, when we're living through and from the secret place. You know, you had this really great quote from Henry Blackaby. I want you to say that again. I thought that really brought home kind of some of this idea of living from love, living from the Lord instead of living for this checklist. You talk about love and obedience.
Right. He talks in his workbook, Experiencing God, which still to this day, incredible work. But he says, if you have an obedience problem, you have a love problem. And I had to think through that. Even as I was thinking it again, I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means that I can actually obey without loving.
Right.
I can be begrudging in my obedience. So I can obey without loving, but I can't love without obeying. And that's the true litmus test. That if I say that I love, but I'm living a disobedient life,
Right.
I don't really love.
Right.
You know, and I've lived on both sides of that.
Yeah.
I've been a begrudging, obedient person, and I've been a person, and still I'm on a journey
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
where I'm living from a place of love, which makes me want to please God. I want to please God because I love Him, not because I feel beholden to Him. And if I do the right things, then He's going to bless me.
Yeah.
That's just not what life is about at all.
That's right. Yeah. No, and that, I mean, Henry Blackaby and the experience of God, I mean, what he said there is profound, and it's timeless. It's never not going to be true, you know? And so, yeah, well, you know, the end of your message really kind of boiled down to just a couple of things, but really at the end of the day, it kind of boiled down to the gospel a little bit. And you talked about specifically in Romans chapter 5, where it's like, you know, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us, and just this idea that we can't fulfill any of these things, like, and we're not designed to fulfill any of these things, and there's only one person who could, and that's Jesus. And so obviously you gave this presentation on Sunday of, listen, some of you in this room have yet to actually essentially accept this free gift of the law written on your heart, you know. And so you talked about Ezekiel 36, talked about being a new creation and all these, you know, just the whole picture of the gospel. But you kind of ended with this phrase. Actually, it's kind of funny. Every week we end the podcast talking about the secret place, but on Sunday you also finished talking about the secret place, because you said love is formed and fostered in the secret place. Obviously, the secret place is spending time with Jesus, right? Specifically in our quiet times, our devotional times, but even in our times of worship. But I loved what you said kind of to end things. You said Jesus isn't inviting us into a performance, which is kind of referring back to that legalism, right? Just the checklist that so many of us try to get through. But instead, he's inviting us into proximity. I loved that. Like when you said it on Sunday, my hair stood up. I'm like, oh, there it is, you know. Tell us more about that.
Well, first of all, I think Leanne may have said it, so it was not original thought
Okay.
from me, and I don't know if she got it from somewhere else, but it did resonate with me.
Yeah.
So I want to take one step back, because I think about, you know, when somebody says, "Hey, I've got some good news and some bad news."
Yeah.
Yeah, which do you want to hear first?
Yeah.
And most people will say, "I want to hear the good news first."
Right.
Well, the gospel is that.
Yeah.
The gospel is good news, bad news, and we start with the bad news.
Right, yeah.
The bad news is you're broken.
Yeah.
And you can't fulfill the law. You couldn't do it on your best day.
Yeah.
And that was why we need Jesus. Jesus is the fulfillment of the law. And so we get dinged sometimes for somebody has recently said, "Hey, you guys just focus so much on brokenness.
Yeah.
Where's the good news?" And I'm like, well, we focus on it because people don't want to admit that they're broken.
Yeah.
You know, this is the real stuff.
Yeah.
The real stuff is we need Jesus. And so we always bring it back to that. We bring it back to the gospel.
Yeah.
That it's not about your goodness. It's about the goodness of Jesus.
Right.
That in your brokenness, He meets you there.
Yeah.
Both pre and post salvation. So pre salvation, we need Him for salvation. Post salvation, we need Him because He is actually, Paul talks about working out our salvation.
That's right.
And working it out with fear and trembling, that we are continuing to be made into the image of Christ. And we will not be in the image of Christ this side of heaven. Which means that we're still broken, we're just forgiven.
Right.
And we're in the process of Him repairing that which is broken.
Yeah.
Where does that take place?
In the secret
It
place.
takes place in the laboratory of the secret place. And if we're unwilling to be in proximity with Jesus, then we will always rely on our performance.
Yeah.
And Jesus is constantly trying to pull out our performance-driven tendency to say, "I really am not interested in you being better."
You're not being graded.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally just had a conversation earlier today that I said, you know, I've experienced so much healing over this last 11 or 12 months. But one thing that I'm still working on is this need for affirmation. And you know, yesterday morning in our staff meeting, one of the things we talked about was like, what are the lies sometimes you still believe, that kind of live rent free in your brain. And for me, one of the ones that I hear most often is you're only as good as your last performance. You're only as good as that last event or that last sermon or that last conversation, whatever it is. And I know that's not true, but it lives there, and it's all, and so I think.
But I think you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's going to fuel me for the next 30 minutes right there, But I think
hey, I'm going to set an alarm.
just
I'm going to text you every 30 minutes.
well, with iPhones now you can schedule text, so you could just schedule out for
Hey.
the next just every day for the foreseeable
Bro.
future.
Done.
That's it. That's it.
Done.
That's all I need. But I think a lot of us approach our faith that way, where if we have really good intentions and motivations to be in the secret place, but something comes up and that day it just didn't happen, now we feel like we're defeated and we feel discouraged. And the more we feel discouraged and defeated, the less likely we are to do it tomorrow. And then it just compounds on, day after day.
Discouragement fosters distance.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And so, essentially what we're seeing here is listen, it's not performance. It's not the checkbox. Jesus wants you in the secret place. He wants you to meet with him daily. But also it's about the motivation of being there. And if you miss a day, which prayerfully you don't, but the reality of it is life sometimes gets in the way. And essentially what Jesus is saying is it's okay. I'll see you tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's cool. It's not about your performance. It's about what I've done on the cross for you to live in the freedom that you live in today.
And think about, if the motivation is transformation, that's a good motivation.
Yeah.
Because it means that I know I need to change.
Yeah.
But most of us, change often takes tension,
Right.
pain.
Yeah.
And we don't want to deal with that
Right.
part of it.
No,
and
we don't
so
like that.
we want to change as long as it's easy, as long as it's convenient.
Yeah.
And man, that's not man, I got stuff to do.
Oh, it's like going on a diet, right? You want the results. You're like, yeah, I want to lose 20 pounds. And then your, nutritionist, your doctor, they're like, okay, cool. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to work out 3 to 5 times a week, high cardio, high protein, high fat, no carbs, no sugar, nothing that tastes good. And you're like, never mind. I'm not interested. You know what I mean? I'll just stay where I am.
Hey, well, what I do is I just eat the bite-sized Snickers.
Yeah.
So it feels like, and I'll have 5 of them.
Right, which actually probably equates to more than one.
Yeah, whatever. I feel better that I ate in small
Yeah.
doses.
Yeah. So the work is done in the secret place. That's always where we land. That's always where we seem to kind of conclude is it's the transformation that's taking place in our secret, in our time in the secret place with Jesus. And so the encouragement today, church, is to get in the secret place as always and let the Lord take his love and present it in your life to implant it in your life of sorts, and then let that as it grows become the outflow into your life, to your coworkers, to your kids, to your spouse, to your neighbor, your community, whoever it is that you're around on a daily basis. And you talk about the fruits of the Spirit, and it's like as we plant the seed of love within us through the Holy Spirit, that eventually grows and becomes apparent everywhere else. And so,
Well, and I think to give people hope.
yeah.
You don't naturally gravitate toward love. You naturally gravitate towards selfishness. And so if you feel like, man, I want to do that, but I just gravitate toward, my own agenda, that's very natural.
Right.
And so don't beat yourself up about it. Just, it may take some discipline to get you to the secret place, but I promise you, once you get there, once you've tasted and seen that the Lord is good, he will stir up a hunger and affection for more, because you'll begin to see change in your life.
That's right.
Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. That's Jesus, Matthew 5:6.
Yeah.
He promises to fill and to create a hunger and thirst as we meet with him, as we sit with him. And so that's the hope. That's the good news.
That's it. It's the work in the secret place. All right, church. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week on Afterthought.
See you later.